Hey folks, Kilt-Man here, Kilt-Man! At your services, how are you all? Hope you're doing very, very well. Now, yeah, I've relocated again. Now, the reason is, I've just finished work, I've just shut the laptop down, and the world is safe for for the evening. Later in the night, I can't promise, things could go completely titty up, but I don't work then, so it's beyond my control. But so I've been busy all day, worky, but I've been working in the front of Kilt Mansion rather than the back of Kilt Mansion. Why? Because of that conservatory. Yes, it's not built yet. It's mostly there. Pretty much he's done everything apart from put those pesky panels, you know, the things that became the bane of our life. Those things, those big long, stupid 12-foot bloody things. They only actually got made today, so he's going to pick them up tomorrow, so they should be on. So for those of you who are thinking, oh, I'll be doing a video or a video diary, because I did get asked to do that. I've not really intruded out there while he's been working away. Although what he's done has been absolutely amazing. I mean, for a one-man band, what he's done is phenomenal. And he's done a lot more things that, you know, because he's waiting for these things to arrive, he's done a lot more bits and bobs around the premises. He's been spectacular. And I will give him, I'm going to show you the final, end result of all his labours, and I show you the brand new conservatory. I will big him up good style, and I'll tell you who he is. But certainly he's fan. I mean, I won't big him up just yet because it might all go fucking wrong anyway, knowing my luck. But anyway, so I've been in the front room, workies, and real work took place out the back. Because he's bashing and crashing and doing stuff. I like the way I said bashing and crashing just when the music bashed and crashed. And people say I throw these things together on a wing and a prayer. But so I selected some CDs to play on the retro sound system here. And the big selection I picked, the first thing I put on was Jerry Goldsmith's score to 1999's epic Raiders of the Lost Ark wannabe, The Mummy from Stephen Sommers. And you know it and you love it, of course you do. It is the last great Indiana Jones movie, even though it hasn't got Indiana Jones in it. But we don't talk about Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, do we? Ah, Jesus. But The Mummy from Stephen Sommers, starring Brendan Fraser as adventurer Rick O'Connell. That it is just totally in spirit and in mood and in slapstick and action set piece. It is just an Indiana Jones movie, and it's fantastic and all the better for it. But so this big selection of CDs are brought in. I've only played one on a loop. Now the horrible thing is, I know some of you soundtrack collectors are going, well, is it the full extended double disc edition? Well, the one right here, right now, no, it's not. It's just the original CD release of it. But the full expanded version is actually on the bloody sound system in the kitchen, where I was working previously. But I've been playing it non-stop all day. And even though I haven't seen the movie for, Christ, it's a long time. Because I think after Van Helsing, which Stephen Sommers did after The Mummy Returns, he was getting delusions of some sort of supernatural grandeur, and every film he made was just bigger, but less and less horrific. I mean, The Mummy it's a horror movie. The Mummy Returns, a horror movie, although he waters it all down and makes it family friendly, albeit with lots of reincarnations and flesh ripping and scarab beetles and that kind of stuff. And then the sequel, little pygmy cannibal demon things, but it's still family fare. And then after that, Van Helsing, he massively watered that down. And it's a film, I've covered the film a lot on the channel, Van Helsing, and I do long to love it. It's one of those films, every time you watch it, you're willing it to do something better, something a bit more polished. Take out some of the excess, take out some of the fat off it, and just trim it down a little bit, because Stephen Sommers did not know how to end a movie. He'd just throw climax after climax after climax, which makes it sound like a friggin' orgy, but it's just a complete CG clagfest. And yeah, I still have an immense fondness for it. That's Van Helsing. And the Mummy films are pretty much the same. It's just, even the first one, which is by far are the best and the most enjoyable. It's like one of those climaxes that just doesn't know when to end, doesn't know when to stop. But playing the music, Jerry Goldsmith's fantastic score for it today, it transported me from like the windswept and interesting location I'm in right now into a more exotic clime. I was transported to ancient Egypt and pyramids and all sorts of, archaeological bone digging antics, and I can't wait to watch the film again. But I started thinking, like, well, once I shut this down, the laptop, I want to do a quick video and I'll just talk about the Mummy and see what I can remember. And because I've done this before, I remember shutting the laptop down, God, last year sometime, like working from home still, and I've been playing the soundtrack, Trevor Jones' score for Sly Stallone in Cliffhanger, and I thought, well, I want to talk about Cliffhanger, and even though I hadn't seen the film for eons, I was still able to wax lyrical for a good half hour or more about a film I'd actually mostly forgotten about and hadn't seen for donkey's years, and The Mummy is just the same. But it's great good fun. I mean, Brendan Fraser, what's happened to him? He was doing lots of George of the Jungle and all that, and the Mummy films, and The Passion of Darkly Noon. He tried to break out, didn't he, from the heroic, good-looking, rugged action adventurer with a twinkle in his eye and two guns and all that like sort of stuff, into more darkly dramatic sort of, and then I don't think it really worked out too well for him. And then he began to put on weight, didn't he? Got a bit on the bloaty side. But from what I know, from what I remember, he's made a big sort of comeback on TV. Not that I've watched any of that either, but apparently that's what he's done. And he had Rachel Weisz as Mrs. Daniel Craig. She was formerly Mrs. Darren Aronofsky, and then Bond won her over, and she was in the first two movies, and then there was. So Mummy Returns, and then it was the Mummy 3, what was that called? Something, the Tomb of the Dragon Emperor, and it had Yetis in it, and the Great Wall of China. It had Jet Li and Michelle Yeoh, and it was shit. Without putting too fine a point on it, it was shit. And I believe that Rachel Weisz didn't want to do it at all. But Rob Cohen, who directed it, because even Stephen Sommers didn't direct that one. He took a producer's seat on it. But I think he was beginning to realise that, hang on, his style was kind of like, critics were absolutely lambasting his stuff. Audiences still lapped up the big, lavish, excessive CG overload that he was producing. But critics were just fucking, falling over themselves to like throw turds at it, like, because critically speaking, his films are not exactly any great shakes. They're talking about the Mummy in Egypt. But the Mummy, the first one, let's get back on track, is excellent, good fun. It is so ridiculously OTT. You've got Kevin J. O'Connell. Is his name O'Connell? It's Rick O'Connell, isn't it? Who's the hero? But I'm sure his name is O'Connell as well. O'Connor, that's it. Kevin J. O'Connor. And he plays Benny, who's Rick O'Connell's duplicitous, untrustworthy, treacherous sidekick throughout most of the movie. They've been in the French Foreign Legion together, and yet Benny's left him to die several times. He stabbed him in the back, he's betrayed him. But you still can't help but love this guy. And like, Kevin J. O'Connor was in so many of Stephen Sommers' movies. He's in Deep Rising, which also had a fabulous Jerry Goldsmith score. He was in, obviously, the Mummy movie. He's in Van Helsing and G.I. Joe, Rise of the Cobra and all that shite. And that was shite, wasn't it? Let's be honest. See, once again, he just doesn't know when to rein it in. But anyway, arguably, these things all have their fans, and who am I to denounce when I actually find them very, very enjoyable on a very, sort of low down level. But the Mummy itself affects Arnold Vosloo as the Mummy, Imhotep. He's outstanding. It's one of those films where at that time, if it wasn't a dinosaur or a monster or a werewolf or a vampire, it doesn't matter what it was, its mouth would go bloody huge. And like Arnold Vosloo as Imhotep, reincarnated from the holy city of Hamunaptra. Am I getting these things right? Hamunaptra? And he wants to reincarnate his lost love, Ankh-Sunamun. Oh my god. Yeah. Because he's the isn't he one of the priest's devotees that falls in love with back in the ancient times with the emperor, the king's daughter, the pharaoh's not daughter, wife, and and how dare he? So he suffers the worst curse of all. He's buried alive in a sarcophagus, and they pour in all the scarab beetles. They are those fucking things, the scarab beetles that get under your skin and all that, like, whoa, and they're all crawling everywhere. But so even though it's a kid-friendly sort of movie, there's a lot of nastiness in it. There's skin ripping and all sorts of stuff, like, and death aplenty, and the plagues. I mean, you get flaming meteorites destroying Cairo and all that, and you've got like plagues of locusts and all that, like, and you've got Arnold, the great South African actor Arnold Vosloo from Hard Target and the Darkman sequels. But the gob, and he's striding around. Mostly, he's only got like a loincloth on him. He's in good shape, and like you'd see him as like a wailing sandstorm, and he'd be taking down old British biplanes with that Biggles type character who saves the day for one sequence, and then goes into the sand, and the sand just swallows him up, and they all like salute him and all that cornball. And then you see the sandstorm swells across the desert, across the plains, the Sahara, and just forms into Arnold Vosloo. And I don't know, if I look at it now, all these years down the line, I'm going to think, oh, that's a really shit effect, that. But at the time, it's a memorable image. It's great. I also love like some of the Americans who are going out to the expedition to excavate and find and hammering up to all these treasures and all that. And but Benny makes a resurgence after many little skirmishes with his supposed friend, his reluctant friend Rick. And the Americans find this, and Benny has found or bumped into the mummy Imhotep, who makes him one of his devotees and uses him a bit like Dracula uses Renfield and all that kind of stuff. Which, of course, in the film Van Helsing, with Hugh Jackman playing Van Helsing, you've got Kevin J. O'Connor as I'm sure he's playing Renfield, and he's like a fucking hunchback sort of thing, like, and so he's a bit typecast, always the little has-been sort of nasty guy you can't quite trust, but you still like him at the same time, like little urchin, urchining about, setting people up and being conniving and scheming, and highly unpleasant. But so he joins him, and you see on the shadow on the wall of the mummy taking the skin off one of these Americans, and you see this body rise up in the shadow on the wall, and all the dust, all the flesh and the meat flies off him, and then just the body just crumples into like this skeletal thing and just hits the deck, just nothing left of it. And with each new victim, there's more flesh on the bones of Imhotep. A little touch of Hellraiser there when Frank Cotton, who's managed to survive the Cenobites, brought back by Julia, because she loves him because he's a bad boy, and for every victim that she brings to him and he kills, everyone you kill puts more flesh on my bones, and we both want that, don't we? He says to her. Claire Higgins, she's phenomenal in that, and Clive Barker's Hellraiser, but it's the same sort of thing, and he wants his old love back. He wants to, bring her back to life, but also bring back an army. And Rick O'Connell and his buddies, Rachel Weisz and her brother, John Hannah, the wonderful, always wonderful John Hannah, playing a very sort of camp, bookish nerd, and a bit of a 1930s sort of playboy, an absolute wastrel. Just, he's inherited money from a well-to-do family, well-heeled and all that, like, and he's just playboying it around the world. And Cairo just happens to suit him at the time, like, but he's a bit of a fucking pleb. You know? But I do like John Hannah a lot, and he's again comedy relief. But you've got loads of little bits like the comedy. You've got the fight on board the boat, the river boat going up the Nile, because after being betrayed in the big battle at the start with the Tuareg sort of rebels and the French Foreign Legion get massacred there, and they're actually in Hamunaptra. They're defending the holy city of Hamunaptra. Why are they doing that? Can't remember why. And that's how Rick O'Connell begins to realise, oh, there's something more there. Maybe because the ground starts moving and he hears voices and all that, which is the mummy sort of awakening. And but Benny's left him to die there, and he finds him on the riverboat, and he's undergone this mission to help Rachel Weisz, who will become his wife in the between this movie and the next movie. They become married and have a little child, a little scrote, don't they? And but on the boat he finds him, and there's other bogeymen on the boat, and a big fight ensues there, and it's quite violent as well. Like there's a lot of comedy moments too, and but when they all end up off the boat's on fire, and they're on either side of the Nile, and you've got Benny saying, "Rick, my old buddy, it looks like I've got all of the horses," and like Rick shouts across from this side, like, "Benny, my old buddy, it looks to me like you're on the wrong side of the river." It's like, oh, fuck. Not exactly a small river, the Nile, but I think it's quite condensed for the movie sequence. Otherwise, you couldn't quite shout to each other, could you? But anyway, but it is great. And but Goldsmith's score is what sort of anchored my day. Whilst conservatories are being built out there, and you know, the construction out there, it's almost like, you know, building up one of these pyramids. It's pretty much all it needs is the top, just the roof. That's it, just those panels, and bingo, it's done. And then you'll see it, and it'll look fantastic. They become a great new studio. Not that the rest of the family want me to be doing that, but we're gonna win, aye. But where was I going with that? Oh yeah, so I was playing the music all day long, and Goldsmith at this time, sporting his long grey ponytail, looking really fucking cool, you know, an aging hippie. And this and the soundtrack for The 13th Warrior, the Antonio Banderas, or Antonio Banderas, as I like to call him, the 13th Warrior, Michael Crichton, John McTiernan directed, yet Michael Crichton, the author and filmmaker, booted John McTiernan out of the editing suite and then took over and chopped down John McTiernan's fantastic retelling of the tale of Beowulf, Viking saga. It's actually an Anglo-Saxon saga, but you know, and which I've covered. I did a massive review of The 13th Warrior. It's one of my all-time favourite movies, and Goldsmith's score is absolute dynamite for that. It's for Valhalla and everything. But the same orchestra, the same instruments, the same instrumentation, the same imagination and flair that went into that also goes into The Mummy. And this score is just an exciting romp, and yet it's full of total Goldsmith-isms, because there's so much intricacies and melodies playing in and out, weaving in and out of all the action and the bombast and the set piece mayhem. There becomes an intoxicating rush, an adrenaline rush, and yet it's beautiful as well. So let me find a couple of tracks which I think really illustrate this point. Let's go on to, this is the I think it's called Boat Raiders, Boat Battle, Boat something. What's it called? Night Boarders. Wasn't even close, was I? And this is that nice sort of romance on board this riverboat. And then you'll get a bit of a skirmish, and you'll get some bombast. But there's always exotic instrumentation, cymbalums and I don't know, all of tabla and all sorts of Egyptian sort of stuff to try and give it that exotic feel. Don't worry, I will shut the fuck up so you can hear it in a minute or two. But the action kicks in. There. There's all bullets going through walls, and Rick's there like loading. And he's like, The next bullet's going to go through his head. There's flames, there's fists. People are flying over the railings into the river. Explosions are going off like. This style and the sound, it fits hand in glove with the 13th Warrior. It's fantastic. This is the xylophone, the little details. And I was sitting over there with a laptop trying to save the world. And what better music to help you do that? Scimitar swirling around my head. 2 old revolvers. So you get these lighter bits, these little interludes, these bridges. And then fanfare. Sounds so easy. It sounds so, that's just Goldsmith. How would you write that and translate that and get an orchestra to do it? Because I'm not sure. I think he may have conducted this as well. Yeah, music composed and conducted by Jerry Goldsmith. Swirling. I've said before so many times, if you're in the orchestra and you've got someone like Goldsmith commanding this, how do you stop? How do you come down from it? Again, these exotic little moments. Like in the cinema, when this sort of thing is on, it isn't just the action on screen, but I'm like that. People have got to hold me down. I'm up, I'm punching. Oh, God. Come on. And I wonder why no one else is joining in. Come on, what's wrong with you? The deep bass to it, and the surge. And then you can just settle into a little quieter segment before. I'll just say now that the full expanded version of this from Intrada does sound better. It's remastered. It's just cleaner, crisper, brighter, warmer. Everything's better, louder. But this is beautiful. This is when they're actually journeying off now across the desert to find this lost city of Hamunaptra. Listen to this. These little mandolins, or whatever they call them, I don't know. Not sitars. I've forgotten what they're called. Gorgeous sound though. But listen how this builds and becomes just euphoric. Listen. And a chorus comes in, a choral backing. And then builds even more. You can see the expanse of the desert. It's big, it's wide, it's broad, sunlight, it's beautiful. And it's uplifting, it's powerful. Sand in bits you don't want to get sand in, you're like, ugh. that it is such a gorgeous, ebullient, that's a great word, an ebullient, almost jubilant sort of piece of music. And a lot of film fans and film score buffs write off this period of Goldsmith's career after spanning 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, just into the 2000s, and they write off this sort of tail end. You'd had the 80s where he brought in a lot more electronics, and he's liberally integrated them into these later scores as well. But he knew how to use them. I'll give one exception to that. The score for the film Runaway with Tom Selleck, which I love the movie, and Gene Simmons, that Gene Simmons, that is purely electronic, and for me it doesn't really work. I know what he was trying to do with it. He was experimenting, and you've got to love the guy for doing that and forever pushing the boundaries and learning new things and trying to weave it all in. But that one left me cold, didn't work for me. It's very sort of, don't bother. But great film though. But whereas the rest of his scores, once he discovered electronica and synthesizers, he would bring them in and they'd be embedded in there. This is the camel race. This is when Rick O'Connell and his heroic mob and Benny and his mob see when the sun's mirage lifts, Hamanuptra suddenly appears, and they're fucking camels fucking plunging across the desert to try and get there first. It's gorgeous, isn't it? It's non-stop surging. The expanded score, playing in complete form, has segments where it slows it all down. Sometimes an expanded score doesn't really work as well as the initial release, because Goldsmith, like many composers, would put out an album of almost like a suite. Look, I'm not doing the full score, I'm not releasing that. I'm going to collect and sometimes re-orchestrate pieces of music so the album would flow better. And sometimes, not all the time, smaller is better, And in this case, I would say that although I do adore the full expanded complete score, I think this holds together better. He knew what he was doing. The full score plays alongside the movie. To hear it separately, it begins to diffuse and dilute this momentum a little bit. Sometimes you might need that though. He didn't score The Mummy Returns. That was Alan Silvestri. Alan Silvestri, whose name needs no introduction here on this channel, because I've played his stuff so many times and I do adore Silvestri, and he's still going strong. And his score for The Mummy Returns is actually really, really good, but it doesn't have that eternally uplifting, exciting surge and momentum that this does. It's not as warm either. This feels all-encompassing, warm and buoyant and alive, non-stop, boisterous action, and the romance really plays in well. I mean, the whole thing is, it's definitely an offshoot of Raiders of the Lost Ark, and John Williams, debatably came up with the best action 30s throwback romantic heroic score you could ever possibly have, and this is of that ilk. And yeah, I play this more than I play Raiders. I do love the Raiders of the Lost Ark theme, and of the three good movies, I think it's the one I do play the most. No, do I? Do you know what? I might actually play Temple of Doom, because Temple of Doom is my favourite of the original trilogy of Indiana Jones movies, and it's got the ghostly elements and the supernatural elements and the blood sacrifices and rituals, and that fucking terrifying. Not just in the movie, but in the music as well that John Williams came up with. But this is all cut from the same sort of action heroic cloth, and Goldsmith had been doing this for longer than John Williams had been doing it, so he knew his stuff inside out. So yeah, I mean, that's a little whistle-stop tour of basically what you do when you're waiting for the roof to be put on your conservatory. You play fantastic movie music, and then you think, oh going to have to sit and watch the movie now. But you got a little mini review there. The first mummy is great, good fun. It's got some shitty bits to it as well. I mean, at the end, in the tombs of the base of the pyramid, and he's trying to revive Ankh-Sunamun, and all his army of the dead rise up and all that, and they're marching down the stairs, just CG dickheads, and they're marching and they turn and all that, like, and then they go to the camera. It's like, oh, come on, give it a rest now. Give it a rest. This is obviously the shrouded mummy coming up and like taking victims, taking people's eyes. But I do love the end of it as well, where Benny has once again set up Rick, but Rick's managed to lock him in. They all get out as everything's collapsing, and all these like stone doors are coming down. That they can't. Well, they just get under inside. Shades of Indiana Jones and another temple, you know, with a golden fertility statue. And but Benny gets left behind, and the light's gonna fail. But all the scarab beetles come out, millions upon millions of them, and they're all surging towards him. And then they cover him, and the light finally goes out. They just hear this horrible, blood-curdling scream, and this skittering. Not a good way to go. Anyway, folks, there you are. That was half an hour there of absolute inane waffle. But you got a little mini review in there, and you got to hear some fabulous, fabulous music. And you got an update on the conservatory. So, you know, plenty of bang for your buck there. As you get here. Isn't it brilliant? You know, people walking past, you know, who shouldn't be on our land out there. Get the shotgun. Trespassers. People walking past, they must hear some of this stuff like, and think, the fuck is he playing this time? That's Kilt-Man. That's Kilt-Man there. Again, playing his weird music. Folks, I have been, always shall be, a slave to stuff like this. Please, keep it Celtic, and I am going to see you all. Laters! Coming to a tomb near you soon. Nookie Dicky, Dicky Nookie Boss.